Hello, everyone, and welcome to Bookercast, the podcast where books come to life.
And I'm so excited to dive into another amazing story with all of you.
Whether you're a bookworm or just love a good story, this is the place for you.
Every episode, we explore incredible books, talk about their stories and characters, and share insights that'll make you fall in love with reading all over again.
All right, let's not keep you waiting any longer. Get comfortable, and let's jump right into it.
Sounds good.
All right, so today we're diving into some pretty intense stuff.
They're intense.
The Vegetarian by Kang.
Yeah.
I was really excited when I saw this pop up in the suggestions
Yes.
because this is a book that,
Yeah, it's one of those.
it gets under your skin and
It lingers.
it lingers,
Yeah.
yeah. And I really want to kind of dig into it with you.
Absolutely, and I'm curious to hear what you thought about it as well.
Oh, for sure. So for anybody out there who hasn't read this book, The Vegetarian is about this woman, Yeong-hye. And it's about her decision to stop eating meat.
Right.
But as you quickly realize,
I think so much more than that.
it's not just about like, oh, I'm going vegan or something.
Exactly. It's not a simple dietary choice. It really sets off this chain reaction, almost this unraveling of her life and her relationships.
Yeah, and the way that the book is structured really kind of lends itself to that too, because it's in 3 parts.
Yeah. 3 parts each from a different perspective.
Yeah, and so you're getting these like really interesting fragmented views of Yeong-hye and how she's impacting everybody around her.
Yes.
So we start off with part 1, narrated by her husband.
Yes.
And he's not winning any Husband of the Year awards, is he?
No, he is definitely not the most sympathetic character that we encounter.
No.
But he's interesting because Kang uses him, I think, as this sort of entry point for us to understand both Yeong-hye and the world that she lives in.
Yeah, and he's like obsessed with how normal she is, right?
Yes, he's obsessed with her ordinariness, which is so telling, right? Because it speaks to this kind of pressure, particularly on women in Korean society, to not stand out, to not rock the boat.
Yeah, I mean, he even says that he chose her because she was so unremarkable.
Exactly.
Which is like, oh.
Like she's this blank slate that he can control.
Yeah.
Which is kind of horrifying when you think about it.
Yeah, and then all of a sudden she's just like those vegetarian.
Yeah, and it's not even like this big announcement or a moral argument or anything like that. She just stops.
Yeah, she just decides like, I'm not doing this anymore.
Yeah, it's almost like this visceral primal rejection. And even she doesn't seem to fully understand it at first.
Yeah, there's that one line that I thought was so interesting where she says to her husband, like,
oh, yes.
The meat, your body smells of meat.
Yes.
I thought that was just so powerful.
It is. It's such a loaded statement.
Yeah.
It speaks to the growing distance between them, but also to Yeong-hye's own internal struggle. Like she's not just rejecting meat.
Right.
She's rejecting what it represents.
Yeah.
Conformity, societal expectations, maybe even her own humanity in a way.
Yeah, and then there's these like nightmares that she starts having.
Yes, the nightmares.
About a barn and blood and feeling trapped.
So vivid and so visceral.
Yeah.
They really get under your skin.
Like, are those just foreshadowing or are they like symbolic of something?
Right. Are they symbolic of her feeling trapped in her marriage and her life? Or are they hinting at this darker transformation that's happening within her?
Yeah.
Kang leaves it open to interpretation, which adds to the unsettling nature of the novel.
Right. And then like the whole thing with the bra.
Oh, yes.
Her husband is so obsessed with her wearing a bra.
Even in the summer heat.
Even in the summer heat.
Right.
It's stifling.
It's so controlling.
It is. It's such a small detail, but it's so revealing about his need to control her.
Right.
Even down to like the most mundane aspects of her appearance.
Yeah.
And her refusal to wear one becomes this act of defiance. It's like she's pushing back against his expectations in this very quiet but significant way.
Yeah, and then it just keeps escalating, right?
Yes.
Like he finds her in the middle of the night throwing out all the meat.
Oh, the meat, I'm afraid.
Not just like a little bit, like their entire stockpile.
Yeah.
And she's so calm and methodical about it.
Yeah.
And he's bewildered, he's panicking. It's like he's realizing he's losing control.
Yeah.
That his ordinary wife is anything but.
Yeah. And that's where part 1 leaves off.
Yeah.
Right? So you're just left with this feeling that something way bigger is about to happen.
It's like the calm before the storm. You know, something's coming.
Yeah.
You can feel it in the air.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's like her not eating meat just kind of throws everything off for everybody.
Yeah. And then part 2 is like a tidal wave.
Oh, yeah.
It's like, whoa.
Things escalate quickly.
Yeah. And now we're seeing everything from The brother-in-law's perspective.
Yes, the artist.
Artist, yeah.
And it's a whole different lens.
It is.
And it's a lot more unsettling.
It's creepy, like the whole...
And I think it's interesting how he becomes both observer and participant in her transformation.
Yeah.
Like, he's drawn to her.
Yeah.
But it's not a healthy familial affection. It's something a lot more complicated.
It's weird, yeah.
Yeah, it's kind of messed up.
Yeah, and like that whole family dinner intervention.
Oh, God.
Oh, my God.
That scene is so uncomfortable.
It's like straight out of a horror movie. They're like trying to force her to eat meat.
Right. It's like this family just desperately trying to hold on to this idea of normalcy. And they want to force Yeong-hye back into this box that they've created for her.
Yeah.
And the father, this rigid military man,
Yeah.
he sees her vegetarianism as this, like, personal affront.
Yeah.
A challenge to his authority.
Right.
Disrespect for traditional values.
And when he shoves the meat into her mouth.
Oh, it's brutal.
It's so violent.
It's horrifying. And it's interesting how that act of violence triggers an even more violent response from Yeong-hye.
Yeah.
She cuts herself right there at the dinner table.
Yeah.
It's shocking. It's disturbing.
Yeah, it's like she's trying to take back control of her body.
Exactly. It's like this ultimate act of defiance.
Right.
She's rejecting their control, both physically and psychologically.
And the meat in that scene just represents, like, everything she's trying to get away from.
Yes, absolutely. It becomes the symbol of societal expectations, conformity, the pressure to be normal.
So you were talking about, like, the brother-in-law's kind of weird attraction to her.
Yes, his voyeuristic tendencies.
Yeah, so how does that play out in this part?
Well, he gets fixated on this image of her,
Okay.
naked, covered in flowers.
Okay.
And he sees her as this muse, this blank canvas for his art.
Yeah.
But it gets really ethically murky.
Yeah.
Because he starts to exploit her vulnerability
Right.
for his own artistic gain.
It's like he's objectifying her.
Yes.
And that whole thing with the Mongolian mark, too.
Oh, yes, that's fascinating.
It's so creepy.
It sets her apart, makes her different.
Right.
And in a society that really values conformity,
Yeah.
that difference can be both fascinating and threatening.
Right.
But the brother-in-law doesn't see it as, like, a mark of her individuality.
Right.
He sees it as inspiration for his art. Like, he's trying to control her.
Yeah.
Define her through his artistic vision.
And then Yeong-hye's mental health is just, like, deteriorating.
Right? Is she having a breakdown? Is this a spiritual awakening?
Yeah.
Kang never really gives us a definitive answer.
Right.
And I think that's part of what makes the book so compelling.
Yeah.
We're left to wrestle with this question,
Yeah.
Is she descending into madness, or is this some radical act of self-discovery?
Right.
And the fact that no one really sees her.
Yeah.
No one understands her.
Her family doesn't even try.
Exactly. It just isolates her even further.
Yeah. And by the end of part 2, it feels like it's just going to get even darker.
Oh, absolutely. The transformation is far from over.
Right.
And the consequences are going to be devastating.
Okay, so part 3, and now we're seeing everything through In-hye's eyes.
Yes. Yeong-hye's sister.
Her sister, and I thought her perspective was really interesting.
Yeah, it's crucial, I think, because it brings us back down to earth a little bit.
Yeah.
After the intensity of part 2.
Right.
In-hye is more relatable.
Yeah.
She's struggling to understand what's happening to her sister.
Yeah. She loves her sister, but she's also kind of terrified of her, right?
Exactly. She wants her to be normal.
Right.
To just fit back into the world.
Yeah.
But Yeong-hye is becoming more and more detached from that world.
Right. And so at the start of part 3, Yeong-hye is in a really bad place.
Yes. After the suicide attempt, she's hospitalized.
Yeah.
Withdrawn, and her obsession with becoming a plant has just intensified.
Yeah, like she's not just a vegetarian anymore.
No, she's rejecting all food.
Yeah.
She wants to photosynthesize.
Like she's not even human anymore.
It's like she's completely rejecting her humanity.
Yeah. And then the brother-in-law.
Oh, boy.
It just gets so much worse.
His obsession takes a really dark turn.
Yeah.
He sees how vulnerable she is,
Yeah.
how willing she is to submit to his artistic vision.
Yeah.
And he takes advantage of that.
Yeah, he doesn't try to help her.
No, he exploits it.
He paints her body. He covers her in flowers, films her.
It becomes this disturbing performance art piece.
It's so messed up.
Yeah, it really blurs the lines between consent and exploitation.
Yeah, and I remember there's that scene where he tries to get his artist friend involved.
Oh, yes.
And even the friend is like, whoa, this is too far.
Right. even someone who's used to pushing boundaries is repulsed by what's happening.
Yeah.
I think that scene shows just how far Yeong-hye has gone.
Yeah.
How she's transgressed even the most liberal artistic sensibilities.
And In-hye is just caught in the middle.
Yes, torn between her loyalty to her sister and her growing discomfort with what her husband is doing.
Right, like she sees that Yeong-hye is being used, but she's also drawn to the art.
It's a testament to Kang's writing.
Yeah.
That she creates these characters who are flawed, even morally compromised, but still capable of empathy and compassion.
Okay, so the ending.
The ending is unforgettable.
It's haunting.
Yeong-hye achieves her transformation.
Yeah.
She's standing naked in the sunlight, rejecting food, rejecting human connection.
But is she free or is she...
Or is she destroyed?
Yeah.
That's the question Kang leaves us with.
Right.
There's no easy answer.
And it makes you think about like what it really means to be free.
Yes. What are the limits of personal freedom?
Yeah.
How do our choices impact those around us?
It's a book that really gets under your skin.
It stays with you.
It does.
It makes you question everything.
So what about you? What really stood out to you in The Vegetarian?
I think what struck me the most was the power of silence.
Yeah.
Yeong-hye's transformation is driven by this profound silence.
Right.
A refusal to participate in the world on its terms.
And it makes you think about the pressures we all face.
Oh, yes. The expectations. The need to conform.
Yeah.
What happens when we choose to resist those pressures?
Well, this has been a fascinating deep dive.
It has.
And I'm sure everyone listening has their own thoughts and interpretations.
Absolutely.
It's a book that sparks so many questions.
And that's the beauty of it.
Yeah.
It stays with you.
It does.
It makes you think.
Thanks for listening.
And that's a wrap for today's episode of Bookercast. We hope you enjoyed diving into it as much as we did. Thank you so much for spending your time with us. Your support means the world, and we can't wait to hear your thoughts on this episode.
Don't forget to subscribe, hit that like button, and share this episode with your fellow book lovers. And let us know your thoughts in the comments below. We love hearing from you. See you in the next deep dive. Bye for now, and happy reading.